anyways, yeah. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. My name is Maurice. Like I said before, yeah, I'm from Atlanta, but I'm living in the Kanto area as an educator, as a father, and as someone who aspires to be a revolutionary. So just here to talk, here to vent, here to learn. Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next. Peace, Robinson Mega. I am a person. I grew up in California. I'm of Philly Negro descent. I also host a Tokyo-based hip hop art and culture podcast out here in Ikebukuro called The Mega Late Show. I do some writing with my man Paulie Rhyme, and yeah, I'm also happy to be here. Yeah, everybody keep moving further left, and that's it.
Me?
Pick up the reins. Somebody
Bernie is last because you gotta do the rules. All right, I'm Paul. I write for a blog called Multiple Nights. This is not information podcast. Talk my stuff. And I'm a teacher and educator in Honda Aichi, which is like South Central Japan. And yeah, culture, bear, hip hop. I love y'all. We've been tripping for a while. Y'all just getting the intro.
こんにちは、皆さん。私はクリスタンでしょう。よろしくお願いします。今、ワシントン DC とメリーランド DMV のエリア住んでる。So that's where I live. And I used to live in Osaka and Nagoya a year previously. Super excited to learn and to share with you all.
Lit. Hello, everyone. My name is Bernadette Benjamin, but I also go by Bernie or Bonnie-san. Either works. I just recently graduated from college, but I will be moving to Japan, specifically Kawanishi City in Hyogo Prefecture in the next coming months, where I will be a teacher. I am essentially the youngest, practically the youngest of this whole group. So I love it because I get to do a lot of different things by making everybody laugh. So I hope to bring laughter to this podcast. I'm not really that funny. I'm not as funny as Paul, but I'm trying. um, so with that, I will start with the conversation guidelines. So the conversation guidelines is a guidelines list that I created for all of us so that we can have a very engaging, respectful, impactful conversation. There are 8 guidelines that I had created, but they can change over the course of our time together. So number 1 is that this is a safe space for us to come together and express our feelings on matters relating to Japan and abroad. Number 2, for all of us, please respect each other's pronouns, whether they are in the conversation or not. Number 3, I have one mic. So ideally, we will use the raise our hand feature in Zoom or have an emoji in the chat to inform other people in the group that we want to go next, but making sure that the person who's talking has the ability to continue talking. Number 4, following Don Miguel Ruiz conversation guidelines, be impeccable with your word, speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Number 5, listen to understand, not to respond. Ask questions instead of assuming. Number 6, understand that not everyone's Black experience, woman experience, foreign experience is not the same. So do not invalidate others' experiences just because it's not your own or is not similar to yours. Number 7, at any point in this conversation that you feel uncomfortable, either send a private message or let one of us know, a moderator. I think Paul is the moderator for us, so let him know. But we're all friends here, so we can all try to work out whatever issue that we're having. Number 8, Please only share things that you've learned, not personal stories of others in the group or in any of our conversations, unless you have been given explicit permission to do so. So with that, I look forward to having a very engaging and impactful conversation. And these kind of guidelines are also used for our viewers as well.
Alrighty then.
Yes, thank you, Mo. All right, so we got really two big topics, and then we're going to hopefully break into a couple other topics that we have in the chat. If y'all don't know, we spend a lot of time in our chat. Okay, so the first topic is the new Nike commercial. And so there was a commercial recently put out by Nike with the topic of using sports as a way to kind of level the playing field. So sports, for anybody who doesn't know, a lot of coaches say that it's the great equalizer. And if you look through history, you can look at various examples of empowerment or pushing issues forward via using sports as a platform. And I think for Japan, because Naomi Osaka is a towering figure, as well as Rui Hachimura, and they both are part of Nike. Rui is signed to Jordan, which is, basically part of Nike, and then Naomi is a big figure in Nike recently. So they put out a commercial where they had 3 students, all of which are female. One is a mixed student. Another one is a Japanese student who's being bullied. Another one is a Korean Japanese. People use the term Zainichi. I'm not quite sure, but she's definitely Korean. She definitely goes to school in Japan. So, and the premise was that, people are telling them to wait, but they can't stop us, right? That was the ending thing. They can't stop us. Oh yeah, emoji. Thanks. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? Did you get a chance to watch it? I know we have some different perspectives as a woman, as someone lived in Japan, coming to Japan, parents of multiracial children. Thoughts?
Maybe we should, before we get into our opinions about it, we should discuss the reception of the video.
I'm with that.
Because I watched the video once, and I watched it on mobile while I was kind of moving, so I didn't really inspect it all that much. I kind of got the surface level idea what was going on. But what was more intriguing to me was kind of the split between its reception. There seemed to be a lot of people who, I saw people on my timeline who were made emotional by how it depicted those struggles of those 3 people. And I also saw people not on my timeline, because my timeline doesn't have fuck shit like that, but there was people on social media saying that it paints Japan in a poor light, and it paints the Japanese culture as racist or xenophobic, and it does so by kind of making a sweeping statement that people who are mixed race or different are automatically treated differently by people in Japan. So what did you guys think about the reception of it?
Maurice, you got your hand up.
Yeah. Well, I knew this was going to be a topic that we were going to discuss. So I kind of I get called spam by my friends a lot because I'm like an info junkie. So I sent this link of the video out to some of my acquaintances that are Japanese and some that are not Japanese, and just tried to get kind of a field study of what they thought, right after they watch it. A lot of the Japanese people that I interacted with, they were like, what? So the I would say they represent a cross section of people that are usually apathetic when it comes to this type of stuff. And then when it hits them in their face, for example, when Naomi Osaka actually won one of the Grand Slams, now she's Japanese, but it was before that, you never acknowledged her presence. She was just another American or Black person that happened to have a name of a major city here in Japan. So I saw a range of apathy to knee-jerk defensiveness, like, oh well, this doesn't really represent Japan because Japan, we don't really have issues with people, just because of their race or because of their color. Maybe some people would admit, that I saw on my timeline, like, yeah, like we might have a xenophobia problem because we're an island country. And that's an old trope, that's an excuse that's been trotted out for years, which we all know. And I think most of our listeners might understand too, is bullshit, because Japan has never been, even in Sakoku times, like when they were trying to isolate themselves from, other countries and trying to build themselves up from within, they still weren't completely isolated, right? But even now in 2020, you still hear people saying, oh, well, there's many Japanese people that just don't know anything about, foreigners. So that's why they react this way. It's like, well, I guess, 95% of, Japanese people don't have the internet. They don't have TV. They don't have access to information like any other person in the modern world does. So the other people that I saw, obviously in the foreign communities that we see here in especially in the Kanto area, yeah, like people were emotional. But for me, I'll just go right into it. Like, I'll just give my piece and then I'll be out. I'm gonna mute myself. Like, Nike is one of the main culprits of what we see today in the struggle for human rights, for civil rights, in the fight against neoliberalism, in the fights against xenophobia, in the fights of representative politics, in the fight against like identity politics that takes the place of actual meaningful politics on the ground. So, when Nike did all the stuff with Colin Kaepernick and, the Black Lives Matter stuff, you still have to question, okay, where are they putting the money? Where's the money going from all these proceeds? Because you see people joking about it on social media, like, yeah, man, I'm about to go buy me some Air Max 95s, man, because they put the shit out, yo, like they woke. But it's like, yo, they actually paid money to get a marketing team together to piece this thing together because they know it makes money, right? It's a cynical thing. It's a very cynical thing where they're doing this, but are they actually doing anything meaningful on the ground level, on the local level? Are they going into places like Yamaguchi or Yamagata to make sure, hey, like when they put out this ad, if they're sponsoring a team, to make sure that they're putting out anti-bullying campaigns, or is it just a spiffy thing to get people talking, and then the people that fuck with it, that are progressive thinking or left leaning or whatever you want to call it, yeah, they're already on board. The key is are you reaching the people that are moving and shaking and making decisions when it comes to actual policy? Because for me, I'm a black, of course, a black man in Japan. I have kids that look like the one girl in the ad. One of my boys, I know he's going to be an athlete, or people going to target him specifically because of the fact they see their father as someone who is to be consumed for his physical ability. When I walk into the room, a lot of times I am the biggest person. I am the person that, I am the darkness. I walk in like, oh, when I was at one of my son's his sports day, we call it Undokai. I heard it, like they do the relay, and you hear the yapari. Of course, my son blows away like his competition's like, oh, of course he's fast. Like, but I can't confront that person right then and there, and like say, what you mean by that, because then it embarrasses everybody, embarrasses my son. And then it also puts me in a position where, yeah, I am fulfilling that prophecy or that stereotype. Yeah, you're just angry or you're super sensitive to these things. And I get told that all the time. Like, why are you always talking about race? Why are you always focused on people trying to pick on you? And I'm like, dude, like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, like capitalism. When we talk about capitalism, like the origins of capitalism, you cannot divorce it from the history of chattel slavery, which still goes on to this day, and it still puts people like a Rui Hachimura or Naomi Osaka front and facing forward, like front and center, to get people to keep the engine going. That discriminates, that exploits, that that destroys people that look like you and me. brown folks around the world, global South, America, anywhere you want to go, Brazil, you know.
I think before we get into the capitalism, because I think that's a big topic, can we get what do you, Kristen, Bernie, what do you think about the actual video? Because yes, you are, but let's get some thoughts. Who's next?
Get in there.
Because we'll be on woke capitalism for a while.
Actually didn't, I think I watched a snippet of the ad, but I don't think I watched the whole thing because it happened to be on my timeline. Like, you know how YouTube will play you like recommended ads? Like I kind of skipped over it, but I like saw part of it.
Why you skip it?
I wanted to watch my YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Didn't turn you off. That's what I meant.
Well, to Maurice's point, like he made a very good point about like, do these brands like Nike or let's say another sports brand like Adidas, do they actually allocate the funds that they're receiving like to the cause? Like, do they actually give back to Black Lives Matter? And there's this whole thing called like brand activism where, you know, of course they're going to advertise like, oh yeah, we support this movement. And of course, you know, your face is going to be like at the center of the ad because they want to cater to like that specific group. But it all comes down to like where they're putting their money towards. And there was an example I was going to use. It was, what was it? Oh, so I actually read a little bit about Nike, and apparently the CEO had pledged like $90 million to like, you know, improve their like diversity and whatnot in the company because like apparently they only have like 10% of like people that are not white like across their executive board. Like that's like throughout the whole globe. And I mean, I really hope that comes to fruition because like I said, it's all about where you put the money. So hopefully if that goes through, then that would be great. But I just want to see it before it happens. Also, another point, like, so there are a lot of tennis players that get endorsed by Nike, like Serena Williams. What's that girl's name? Sloane Stephens? I think she was endorsed by Nike too.
Yeah, Sloan. I think her name's Sloan.
Yeah. But tennis is one of like the most racist sports there is. And the demographic is ridiculous because I mean, it's majority white. And you see when players play on the court, there's always going to be some type of bias against the Black player. Like, you know, if Maria Sharapova gets mad, then the umpire does nothing. You know, it's like, oh, she's just releasing tension. Like tennis players are aggressive. But then the minute like Serena Williams throws a fit because a play was unfair, all the news is just going to say like, oh, Serena Williams is like, quote unquote, aggressive or a bad like sport is bad at sportsmanship and things of that nature. And like in that area, I really would like for them to actually like try to advertise to not just like people who play basketball, people who play tennis. It needs to go like to all of those areas because like if we're seeing that kind of racism and things like not just tennis, but you know, sorry, I have to sneeze. That's why I just stuttered. Sorry. What I was trying to say before that like muddled my mind was like, I mean, if Nike really wants to bring about like this whole diversity like idea, they really need to start, you know, just, you know, I don't know what they would do, but they really need to like talk to the people who are in charge of like these events and like really promote like this idea. Like you can't treat these people a certain way. Like, I mean, I get that it's an all white sport, but like it's 2020 and you guys need to change. So.
All right. Bernie, what do you think, or what was your thoughts about it?
So my thoughts were not as I don't say nuanced and intriguing as you all. When I first saw the ad, I was really happy as somebody who has studied a lot of the discrimination in Japan as well as discrimination in America, and in thinking about how it actually impacts individuals, as well as doing a whole senior thesis on the ways in which like Black women are treated or the way they navigate Japan. So in a way, like for me, I was happy that there was something that caused controversy. It's kind of sad that this kind of ad did, but I think I was happy because at least it in a way could spark something. Whatever direction it will go is up in the wind. But when I was watching it, I was thinking about you all, right? Like I was thinking about Mega, Paul, and Maurice and your kids, and like how they are navigating Japan themselves and the issues that they are going through. And I'm also thinking about the conversations that I had with my friends about those who are Korean and thinking about, you know, their experience there, because I didn't know a lot about the Korean experience in Japan. And then also thinking about how Japan is just hard for Japanese people in general. And so I was kind of upset but not surprised to see the backlash from Japanese people. And I was just reading the comments, and the comments, not the ones in Japanese, because my reading is not that advanced, but the ones that were in English, the things that they were saying were so interesting, kind of similar to what Mega was saying a lot earlier, or was it Maurice? But like the idea of like, if you are criticizing Japan, that means you hate Japan. And I'm thinking, and now I also thought about my other podcast that I'm in, Sweet Talks, because one thing that we had said in the beginning in our first episode was that we're critiquing, but we're critiquing out of love, right? We're critiquing because we want the society to be better. We want experiences for all marginalized individuals across the globe to be better. And so thinking about this critique in the way that individuals in Japan are seeing it as an attack on them, to me kind of solidified how de facto, in a way, kind of de facto a lot of the discriminations are, meaning like it's kind of like they don't really want to see it's in their face, like it's in the face, or it's like these people are actually going through, you know, a lot of hardships because they think that they're being nice, or it's kind of like muddled under the surface. And there's a lot of, like, I remember, you know, in Japanese classes, when I was taking Japanese in college, the conversations that we had was that, like, you know, you have to read between the lines oftentimes. Like sometimes that they won't tell you to your face if they don't like something, or they may lie to you. Like you have to really read between lines. And I think that could in it of itself illustrate how hard it is for Japanese people to be able to see that what they're doing could be actually problematic. So I was just thinking in terms of like the first go around, because I watched the ad at least like 20 times, because I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people about it. And I just think about like, okay, when I go to Japan, not necessarily that I'm going to be like a changer, a game changer, but it's just like thinking about like what can be done. Also what has been done to at least like bring some sort of solution without, I don't want to say stepping on the toes, because in a way like you have to step on the toes for action to get done, but I'm just thinking about like what can actually be done. And I low key am not looking to Nike to do that. I'm not looking towards like this corporation that is also going through its own nonsense in, I think it was in China. If y'all know more about it, correct me. But Nike itself is not an industry that or a corporation I'm looking towards for the answer. I think that it needs to be more ground. And I agree that like in terms of Nike should be able to like, you know, put their money where their mouth is, but I don't trust their mouth. So I'm, you know, I'm more looking towards like what kind of organization, nonprofits, groups, individuals that we could be highlighting who are actually doing the work, as well as like athletes like Naomi Osaka. That's what I'm like mostly like thinking about. But I'll stop there because I know others want to like hop on like the capitalism train, but that's what I was thinking about.
I think just before, I just want to interject just before we get into it. So I do see in Japan amongst the like Black community and on Twitter, there is that generational gap. So like young people and even some older people who have been in Japan for longer, I think they are really like, maybe, you know, they're really excited. Like, oh man, this has never happened. We were here, you know, 15 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. And there was no voice. There was nothing. So, and I definitely get that part. And they're typically those like super Naomi Osaka fans, or like, you know, you have Miss Japan now, you have 3 biracial or mixed women, all of, you know, I think African. I don't think any of them are American, but most of them are mixed African and Japanese. But, you know, still Black people that's visually Ariana Miyamoto before that. And then there was I think half Indian, Japanese girl who was in between that. And then so you have that, like people are just hyped about, they have kind of overlooked Nike's the devil, because Nike is the devil. And then also Christian brought up about like money, right? So Phil Knight is a known Republican supporter in Oregon and the West. He's donated millions of dollars to Republican campaigns. So where is that money that they're using, this brand activism, then going into, right? Is it going back into those communities? Is it going back here, or is it going to fund Donald Trump or people like him, right? So that, and then the last one was Japanese Twitter. And so, right, Japanese Twitter, I don't know if you guys deal with Japanese Twitter, but it's a I don't know, shitstorm, basically. And they have really focused less on the Japanese girl, because there's 3 girls in the thing, which I thought was interesting, that they use soccer and not tennis or baseball or basketball, because even the guy who plays baseball professionally, I don't know what's his name. What's his name, Maurice? Or Louis? Is it Louis? Maybe his name is Louis too. Do you guys know? It's a baseball player. He came out and said that he wished he was born, if he was born again, he wished he was born Japanese. He wrote this long thing. He thought about killing himself. Okay, I think that's his name. But it just came out a while ago, and I'll try to find it when we talk. So they didn't use baseball. They used soccer. So, you know, thinking about that. So, and yeah, Japanese Twitter, super much. You don't like it, go back home. We are not racist. You're making us look bad. Kind of reiterate that. The one thing I want to say is that my daughter, right, is not athlete. She's like, I mean, she swims, you know, I mean, just for exercise, because we kind of make her do it. And I've met more mixed kids who are not athletes. And Nike is a sports company, so they're going to do whatever they want to do. But I did feel like it's easy to do sports. That's not generally the experience of mixed kids here, though. They're being forced into sports in the way that Black people were forced into sports as a way out, post-slavery, civil rights movement. And she really was like, I don't care. That video's not speaking in that way, like video, it's all right, you know, but you know, I'm tired of people asking me about playing basketball. I don't want to play basketball, you know, just because, and I know they asking me this because I'm Black. So I think, you know, obviously let's talk about Nike, but then talking about kids' experiences. So Maurice's kids, athletes, I don't know about Mega. If your daughter is, you know, leaning toward being an athlete, my daughter is leaning toward being a superhero. And, you know, she likes to read books, and she's very much an intellectual that way. She may be a sports player, but she gets tired of people asking her. And I think this over like focus on Naomi Osaka and these things make it hard for kids who are not into sports. I mean, it makes it hard for kids who are into sports who may not be good, right? They just okay. But, you know, so thinking about that. But yeah, who's next? Maurice got his hand up. There's lots of muting. Mega, all right, go for
it. Yeah, you know, I appreciate everybody's point, and I don't really want to reiterate too much, but to touch on a few things. First, you know, I agree with Bernie. Like, it kind of does make me happy to see these type of things happen. I like diversity in my films. I like you know, my comic books looking diverse, and I think that those things are really important, especially for children who didn't get to identify with things when they were growing up. And just to have that example is really powerful. And so I do like a certain aspect of it, but it's not for me. It's not proving anything to me. The illusion is really broken for me. I just think that it's important to, how can I phrase this, right? All right, so the diversity shit is cool. They're going to put money into colorizing and putting all different colors into the highest positions of their, their corporate infrastructure. I read that they're going to be donating like $40 million over the next 10 years. Nike, the brand itself, which is about $10 million a year towards, these type of sports programs and diversity programs and inner city programs, $10 million. And then the Jordan brand is committing to $100 million over the next 10 years. So both of them are committing to $10 million over the next 10 years, right? But how many billions of dollars did they profit this year? And it's important to remember that like this branding and this marketing campaign is not some individual at Nike who's doing God's work. This is a team with a balance sheet and market research. And this intense campaign of blackwashing, just to use specifically the Black struggle, right? Not the LGBTQ, which other companies like Skittle do, or all these other these social movements. This campaign of blackwashing is just like the greenwashing that they did. It's a campaign where they take the adoption of slogans, mantras, the ethics of this radical liberalism, by the way, that doesn't threaten their fundamental commitment to exploitation of the Black and brown and white employees that work for Nike, of the people who are in foreign countries who are being even more exploited by their wage and their labor. And I just think it's pretty just gross when we have corporations cashing in on the popularity of the social unrest of these movements. And I see there's a bunch of facts here. $34 billion. Like the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is so substantial, dog. Like $10 million is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing to them, and it looks good, but it's also tax write-offs, and I just don't buy it. And we really need to, when it comes to, like Paul, you were saying earlier, like the president donates to this Republican thing. Like really, it's not a big difference between is going to Republican or Democrat. Their exploitation affects the entire swath of the corporate structure and people abroad. So really, it wouldn't matter if it was a green company or not. The exploitation is there. And with Nike, it's just astonishing how clear it is. But I fucking got Nikes. I'm just not fucking buying this, man. I just don't care for it. It doesn't impress me. I think it's okay for my daughter to see, but my daughter has examples. Naomi Osaka is the example. I don't need Nike piggybacking off of her to do these type of things. And this is not any difference than Kylie Jenner bringing a fucking Pepsi to the police to me. They're both just broken, and both models of it are just disgusting. Like fuck woke capitalism. Sometimes it looks good, man. Like sometimes we get like a Black Panther movie. You know what I mean? Sometimes we get some really dope shit, but man, it is a band-aid on a gaping wound.
Does anyone know so like thinking about just the two other, so obviously there's this element of mixed kids, and I'm assuming these kids are in high school, but does anyone have a connection with anyone maybe that is Korean Japanese or Korean, and have you heard a response from them, or even from a Japanese woman, right? So like my wife, she kind of refuses to watch the video. She's like, I don't care about that. That don't mean nothing, like it doesn't mean anything. She's not. So like even who maybe is their target, which is women over here, because women have it rough. Like the struggles that women are facing. I mean, even down to the colleges, women are passing tests and then they're not admitting the women. It's like all kind of fuck shit over here. So I do think that there was this also intent to say women, we want to promote this, we hear that, but there was a lot of blowback from Japanese women, or some Black, Japanese women who weren't even feeling that. So Kristen, you say you have a friend Did you have a chance to talk to them, or can you add to that?
I guess a little bit. So I actually haven't been in contact with him lately. So I don't know if he watched the commercial or not, but he is Zainichi Korean. So I think his grandfather was like captured during the war, and then they like settled in the Kansai area. But he just says that for a lot of Zainichi Koreans, like there are a lot of government policies going against them. And it's kind of sad because, you know, even though, I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell that he's Korean because he changed his name. Like his original name was like Daewoo Boo, and like his Japanese name, which he uses often, especially to like sign documents, is like Daiichi or something. So like it's easily translatable. But I guess I think it's interesting that Nike wanted to incorporate like women and biracial biracial people in Japan and ethnic Koreans, because like those are some like big issues. I mean, of course they're playing it to their advantage monetarily. Of course, they want to make money, but like, you know, these are real issues. And the fact that Japanese Twitter is being just so apathetic towards it, it's interesting because I think Bernadette had said something like this before, like just because you're criticizing your nation doesn't mean that you don't like it. It just means that you care so much for it that you want it to change. And I feel like Japanese Twitter in general is so defensive about that. And I mean, the thing is, their demographic is going to change naturally anyway. Like, that's how the whole world is going to be. Like, now that global travel and like career opportunities are abroad, that's like, it's almost impossible not to end up in a more, what's the word, heterogeneous? Am I saying it correctly? Heterogeneous. It's almost impossible that populations won't become more heterogeneous in the future. Now, when that will be, I don't know. But this whole concept of Japanese are Japanese, this is a mentality that is not going to, it's not going to stay. And whether or not these people are prepared for it, I don't know. But it's just not going to be able to stay.
Yeah,
So.
Maurice, you said that you had a student. You want to jump in on here?
Yeah. I actually asked this kid. It's a younger kid. He's no longer my student, but I still try to keep in touch with him and his mother. They're not. Well, the son, I believe, is not Zainichi Kankokujin. I think he was born in Korea, raised in Korea for a little bit, and then they moved here recently. But his mother, as far as I know, is she definitely, you know, because I mean, she paid me money to teach her son some English. I could see like her name is her name. You know, she has a Korean name and a Japanese name. So, like I mentioned in the chat, you know, like I see a lot of parallels with the treatment of Korean residents here, like some of the older generation of Black people in America or in the Americas. You know, when we talk about, for example, what was the treatment like for someone that you revere as a giant, like my great grandfather? Like he had to like take his hat off and like lower his gaze, you know, when a white person walked by, you know, being called boy or being called mammy or being called by your first name when you knew, like, I can't call my grandmama by her first name without putting grandmama in front of it, right? I can't just call her Miss Katie or Miss Ernestine, like who are you, you know? But a white person could do that, you know? That's shameful, you know? So a lot of people that I've interacted with that happen to be Zainichi Kankokujin, they don't like to talk about it. They just say, like, let's keep it moving. You know, I think maybe they had input with the ad, you know, like, it's not going to stop. Like, no matter what happened in the past century, the past couple of centuries, you know, we're still progressing. We're still moving forward, which is a great message in and of itself. But going back to like what we were talking about before, like with the woke capitalism, the brand capitalism, again, like, I think the people that were touched by this ad and are affected, you know, day to day by the politics that are, you know, expressed in these you know, kind of vignettes where they kind of showing like, yeah, you know, people suck, but you know, people can still be great. We can't just stop at representation. We can't just stop at symbolism. We have to go further than that. And again, like going from the local level on the micro level, that shit is hard. I know, to get even like within my own house, to get people to care about some shit that I believe is actually worthy of caring about is hard. So how am I going to do that? How am I going to activate people outside of the house that actually don't care about me, don't love me, you know, maybe even hate me, you know? So like a lot of people don't want to go after that. So with the Korean, you know, and again, like I see another parallel with the, you know, I mean, it's a polar opposite, but then it's also a parallel. You know, you have a lot of Koreans here in the Japanese entertainment industry. You got a lot of people that are actually, you know, they have Korean heritage, but they hide that shit. You know, it's kind of like the Jewish people of like the 20th century. You know, change your name. You know, you don't want to be a Goldberg, you can be a Milton Berle or something like that. You know, or you know, not you know, you can't have this Jewish, you know, outwardly like, you know, Ashkenazi Jewish name. You need to change your name so everybody can, you know, feel comfortable with you, right? And on the flip side, you know, Black people, you know, we can't hide it, but we get hidden through our partnerships with other people that are more acceptable to the mainstream. So I think that, you know, I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but it breaks into like the whole phenomenon of like K-pop and, you know, like BTS, you know, or like some of the stuff that we were talking about in the chat, you know, like for me growing up, like, and luckily, you know, I consider myself so lucky to have people that to have had people around me when I was growing up to tell me, hey, you know, a lot of this stuff that you're consuming now, like on MTV, BET, or like on the radio, or on TV, you know, it gets filtered down, you know, just like we were talking about with like, y'all were talking about earlier with like the break dancing, street dancing, whatever. It's like, yeah, if you give people that raw uncut, like a lot of people are going to run away from the elements. They're going to run away from the true essence of what it means to be, you know, in a particular culture that they want to consume, right? You get a distilled, you know, sanitized version of R&B or of the blues or of rap or hip hop or whatever you want to call it. So we have to confront that fact too, that like a lot of the people that are content creators that kind of are the tip of the spear when it comes to changing the culture or like moving things forward, they are on the margins, they are on the outskirts, they are the outcasts, they are the ones that, you know, got bullied, and then they take a minus and turn that shit into a plus. But then again, you know, you also have to be careful with some of these people just because they are in the room. I heard this on like, I don't know if it was like, I think it was another podcast. Somebody just said, yeah, like just because you're in the room doesn't mean you have a seat at the table. And I love that saying because a lot of people, they think just because, oh, like we represented this, you know, quote unquote Hafu girl or this Zainichi Kankokujin, that means everything's okay. Like we recognize the problem. It's like, yeah, no, that's the first step. You got to keep going. Like we recognize that bullying is a problem in Japanese schools. We recognize that, yeah, we got a problem with xenophobia. Yeah, we got a problem with consuming Blackness while simultaneously being anti-Black. And that's something that has been imported and exported. You know, it's a cyclical thing. It's not a two-way street when it comes to like how here in Japan, we consume American culture and then we repackage it and we send it back over the sea, you know? Yeah, we recognize it. What are we gonna do about it, right? So yeah, like, you know, with the K-pop, you know, I think I mentioned this before, like in a previous episode, you know, I work with a major music label here in Tokyo, and trying to like just give them knowledge about like, you know, so they were like repackaging, like it was like so obvious, like they're repackaging a repackage, you know, like a rehashing of like Black music, you know. So like these Japanese artists, they're trying to copy what's cool from like the K-pop side, but the K-pop side, you know, straight up, they'll tell you like we learned this shit from like Black folks, like, you know, like same with the fried chicken, you know, like they say, oh, Korean barbecue or Korean fried chicken is the best. It's like, no, y'all learned that shit from us, you know. And then you come back and then you bring it, you know, to, you know, other people that might not know the history of it, and then you claim it as your own, but then it's still like a derivative of like the realness. So, you know, I think for me, when I talk to people that have like that background, what they don't want to talk about it. For example, if they're Korean or if they're Chinese, I have people in my family that actually are Chinese, and you know, they are foreigners, but they don't look outright, you know, like they're foreigners, right? It's very, I think the one big positive thing about a video like this, the Nike ad, is that when you bring that out in the open, you open up the discourse to destigmatize being different. So I think that's the main thing here. You know, I think Paul had kind of touched on it too with his daughter. You know, with my son, I have to remind him every day, you ain't got to be an athlete. You ain't got to be, you know, you ain't got to be a goddamn superhero. You ain't got to be nothing but you, man. Don't let anybody try to put you in a box just because they saw some shit on TV or that they saw some shit in a book that says that all people that look like you got to be this. No, you forge your own path. And that's, you know, a job of a parent, of a guardian, is like to remind people, to keep them grounded. Yeah, it's okay to just be you. Being different is okay because you're not the next person. You don't have to fit in, and being okay with that, having enough self-love to persevere, because even if you try to fit in, people are going to put their foot on your neck. People are going to shit on you, you know? That's why I try to remind my kids, not in those words, but, you know, it's like, yeah, even if you're sitting there trying to fit in and trying to be like the cool kid that nobody else notices, you're just part of the peanut gallery, guess what? Somebody's still going to be coming at you, man. So guess what? Be the best you that you can be, because you definitely, you know, for me, I mean, this is my own ego. I'm like, yo, you look like your daddy, man. Shit, ain't that many people that around the world that look like you, you know? So revel in that, you know? You don't want to be like the rest of these people, because mediocrity, you know, sometimes, you know, I mean, capitalism, you know, pushes that, you know, like be mediocre and revel in mediocrity, so you can just be grist for the gears that grind you up and just use your labor and spit you out, you know? So that's all I gotta say for now.
No, that's dope. So this is what I want to say, because I think the other topic is kind of huge too. So I do want to move on. Plus, I'm really interested to hear how y'all answer these questions, because I've been just thinking about these nonstop. But does anyone else want to add to that piece? Not the K-pop. We're gonna leave that for Sweet Talks. Maurice, you should go on Sweet Talks. I'm just saying. I want to. That's a good one. But can we move to the next topic, or do we want to add anything? Next topic.
I'm good.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
let's move on.
Bernie, can you intro? I was looking for it. I thought you had it. That's why I'm asking. I know the first question is about thinking, but Mega or Bernie, can you intro the question or pose the question?
Yeah, I'll bring it in. To be honest, I don't really know. I was having a difficult time framing it when we were coming up with the question, but I think we were getting about. I was talking specifically about some of the type of articles that we come across, and kind of the underlying ideologies behind them that are between the lines of what's being said, and also how we kind of like take in that information, where we get our information, and what we decide is you know, quality information and not just, you know, whatever. So
was it question, how were you taught to think though? I thought that was
right. Yeah, I was I'm trying to
that was one of the questions.
Like the first question is like, how, like, who taught you to think, and how did you develop your critical thinking skills? Like what schools of thought, and exactly what you think about learning to think.
So who taught you to think, and how did
and then develop, how do you assess the quality of your information?
All right, develop your thinking skill, critical thinking skills. I'm just writing it in the chat too, so we can reference it.
Should I start?
Dozo.
All right. I mean, I think it's important to talk about schools and how they are the most powerful ideological state apparatus that prevent change to the status quo. And because they're mandatory, we're all kind of indoctrinated with a similar through line of, you know, the Pledge of Allegiance, general miseducation about history, regular propaganda, and baseline information about the foundations of the American experience. But you know, it's outside of like all the problems with the school system and propaganda in the United States. I guess I'll just talk about kind of like my own personal journey into trying to figure the shit out. So I think I mentioned before on a podcast, but I don't have a master's degree or PhD in anything. I'm not a college graduate. I never finished college. And so most of the things that I've learned have been self-taught or through talking to people smarter than myself. I guess I've always had kind of that natural inclination, but I think the first kind of academic approach that I was introduced to for learning was by the Nation of the Gods and the Earths. I mentioned before that I used to be God body. Sometimes I still use that slang. I still think it's powerful. But the Nation of the Gods and the Earth is what got me on kind of that path that like Gramsci might call like the organic intellectual, somebody who decided to learn and become a scholar and do that outside of the whole academic intelligentsia, so to speak. So that got me started on my kind of Black radical liberational politics, but I tend to focus more on the spiritual component. So first I studied the like religious traditions of Christianity and Islam, and then I followed that, you know, through the supreme mathematics to all the ridiculousness of Dr. Malachi Z. York L. And that comes with the conspiracy theory and some of the more magical thinking universe type of stuff, New Agey metaphysics, sacred geometry, Discordia. But really what was important about that journey is that it kind of led me to Taoism, to the Tao and integral psychology, which I think is what really greatly informs my approach to life and politics. And I'd say that my politics come as a result of my spiritual worldview and kind of this steadfast commitment to helping the most downtrodden people, and a belief that the separation is an illusion. So with that in mind, I kind of, you know, I'm all about the largest swath of people who are being oppressed. I look around, I see my Black brothers and sisters and my brown brothers and sisters being exploited. And that's really what makes me angry about my politics, but it also keeps me, you know, with a commitment to them. As far as like the academic distinctions in my worldview, well, like, you know, the gods also pushed me to that too. But one of the first things, and I spoke to Bernie about this, was an approach to studying information, which said like, don't just read the author, you know, don't just read the book, read the author. And I just spiraled with that. Once you're done reading the author, read through the author, find out their ideology, look into the semiotics of it, look into the psychology behind it. And that was kind of my baseline introduction to dialectics. And I, you know, started with philosophy and psychology, and you know, I was stealing books. Like I used to steal hella books from the bookstores, and I just stole everything. You know, I started with you know, the earliest philosophers, Plato, Socrates, and I followed that all the way up into, you know, contemporary thinkers. And all that is, you know, Hegelian dialectics, which informs Marx, which informs, you know, Althusser, Gramsci, and all of these, you know, Frantz Fanon, and really, I guess the easiest thing for me to say is that while I was confused through most of that, I would consider myself a Marxist. And so it's kind of like a lot of my thinking is aligned with a general tone of Marxism. You know, I think you asked a question in the chat a couple weeks back about like money and if that was essential to liberation. And it's like I didn't answer because like you guys know me as a socialist, and that is not the key to liberation under an ideology of socialism. Like Maurice said in that same chat, it's like it's important, self-determination is important, but as a Marxist, as a socialist, like that's just not a part of the framework. And so you know, I think that's kind of where I'm at today. I taught myself to think, but it was off the shoulders and off the backs of a bunch of other thinkers. And you know, I've learned how to assess information critically on my own and with help from people who are smarter or more interested than me.
Cool. So
I
let's
definitely don't have answers.
let's get everybody's piece, and then we're gonna go kind of through there. So who would like to go next? And so what
Yo,
I put,
how long was I talking just now? Like 5 minutes?
I mean, it's cool. It was good. It was all good. So educational background, I just broke this question up based on what Mega just did, kind of an outline. Then how you evolved in your thought and what you studied or are studying. So if you can use that, who would like to go? Good, because Mega killed that right there. So
I'm good. If y'all nobody else want to do it.
go for it.
All right. Yeah, so I always consider myself a lifelong learner, student, even though I might know a lot in terms of like just straight up like book knowledge, but I was a non-traditional student. Like I dropped out / got kicked out of school several times just because of many reasons like ego, pride, sickness. But I mentioned in the chat I had a funny story about Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, so maybe you could put that as a hashtag because he's about to transition, thankfully. But my father, he always taught me because he would we would go travel. My dad is a worker, like he has his own business. He's sole proprietor of a carpet cleaning and sanitation business, was extermination. So I would go with him on a lot of jobs. And while we were riding, I would listen to him, just yell at the radio. So I'm like, yo, what is this? Like I'm like 8, 9 years old. I'm like, why are we listening to this guy if he pisses you off so much? But he was telling me, you need to know how the other side of the discourse thinks. So like Rush Limbaugh, like in the early 90s was rising as like the preeminent voice of like conservative America. And as you all can see, like as it progressed, like with Fox News and all the other stuff, he was considered a giant, unfortunately. So you had a lot of people that would tune in and listen. And I wouldn't call it hate listening, but it gave me insight on how some people could convince themselves of one truth when every other indication would show that it's not that way. So being contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian, to try, playing devil's advocate, that type of stuff, it helped me when I was younger to just find the words when I wanted to debate with somebody. I ended up going to Emory University from Woodward Academy. And if anybody that's listening is from Atlanta, they know that that's both like heavy duty Coca-Cola money. So you have a lot of people that are within the academy that are still beholden to corporate America. They can't say certain things in public, because the money's coming from a place that, is vested in the status quo, like all the way. If you know anything about Coca-Cola, yeah. Shout out to one of my old colleagues, Bart Elmore. He wrote about Coca-Cola being one of, they are a perennial, environmental like bad guy. If we did like Captain Planet and the Planeteers, like Coca-Cola should be right there. Like they're like loot and plunder or whatever, Anyways, yeah. So learning how to think, sparring with my mother, like intellectually, because my mother's a teacher. So I had to be on my toes with someone like her, right? And also being around people that were completely different from me. So my dad, again, he's military. So I was raised around a bunch of people that were definitely conservative, that were definitely vested in anti-Blackness without knowing it. So a lot of the things that they did were informed by that. And some people, in their own arrogance, they didn't want to examine. So I would examine for them. So that helped me in my journey as like becoming a man, just being able to understand why someone would act the way that they do, and that helps me, I've struggled with my own patience, with people because, I've learned how to think, I think, but at the same time, I know that some people, it's kind of difficult, it's difficult to actually to make those intellectual leaps or to confront that you have limitations intellectually. So I wouldn't say that being in the academy, doing any type of grad school work actually helped me think. It just helped me understand that sometimes you got to eat shit to get your point across. And to use a fighting reference, yeah, like if I want to be an infighter against somebody that has a very long range, guess what? I gotta take maybe 4 or 5 punches to give that one really big hit. And if that's how it is, so be it.
Can I ask a question, Maurice?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother, but I notice about you, or one thing that I feel like I notice about you is that you studied Socrates a lot? Because I feel like your method and what you're describing, a lot of times it's that Socratic approach where you ask questions, hear the answer, and ask questions to let other people answer. So did you study Socrates a lot? Because I feel like I noticed that about you.
Of course, yeah. So a lot of Socrates, a lot of Plato. All the well, I don't even like to call them classic. It's just stuff that I was exposed to. So like, again, my dad told me, read, consume the knowledge, ask the question, why? Why is the most important word in the English language, in any language? If you ask why are these thoughts or these postulates put in front of you in this manner, get to the nitty gritty of things. Yeah, like I definitely studied Socrates, and being able to, you often have people, when you start to get in these type of intellectual circles, you'll have people that will tell you what they think of you and how they think and how they operate in life without even really having to ask a question. You can just let them do it, if you just ask a simple question, why, right?
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Mo, let me get these ladies in here, and then we're gonna come back to it. Bernie or my battery. Hold on, we've been jamming. Hold on, I need that. Kristen or Bernie, which one of y'all want to jump in?
E comes before K in the alphabet.
Ooh, gotcha.
LOL. I see what you did there. So I am extremely different from the two individuals that went before me, Mega and Maurice. I am still unsure if I really know how to think. And I think that's part of me being young and me figuring out more in life and going through a lot, more like research and like stuff like that. But to answer, the chat been bumping, so I gotta figure out what the first few question was. So my educational background. So I went to a public school my entire life, no private schools at all. My elementary school was the only school where I had like other individuals who were not of my race. So I had like white individuals and like foreigners and stuff like that. But after elementary school, middle school, and high school, predominantly Black, but also very underfunded schools. So for me, in my educational experience, in terms of in schools, it was very much so in line with teaching to the test. We had the regents from New York City, Brooklyn specifically, for all of viewers who don't know. And so for me, like my educational experience inside the schools were all about how do you get the grade that you want in the regents so that you can get a high enough score to go to college. That's kind of the framework. Some classes in my high school were trying to like divulge from that. They were trying very hard to like, not necessarily, I don't know if like get us to think is the right way to classify it, but making it more enjoyable, like making school more enjoyable by having activities, being able to like, I think it was less about like being able to think like academically and theoretically, but like being able to like learn who you are. I think that was centered about like finding who you are, finding what you like, and then bringing that into the classroom while at the same time simultaneously learning how to do the exam. So there was a lot of that happened. So I learned about who I was, but I didn't learn how does me, Bernadette, think. It wasn't really like that. Or if it was thinking was more of like the social level. It was, I think, where I got a glimpse of thinking was like in after school programs. So I did a lot. I was crazy. I did a lot of after school programs. So I was in YOSOS, which is the youth organizing for Save Our Streets, which was a corporation, not a corporation, nonprofit organization that was about taking guns off the streets. So this is where, remember last episode where we talked about guns. A lot of my thinking had stemmed from the experiences that I had on the ground with individuals who had their lives impacted by guns, being at a school that was surrounded by not necessarily gang members, but a lot of gun activity or recently. So for me, thinking, or the glimpse of thinking, in terms of being aware of my surroundings, came from that program, and talking to people and thinking about what am I learning, not necessarily in class, but what am I learning in general, and thinking about how does this relate to the communities that look like me or that are impacted by something that was really terrible. And this is where I think we learned a lot about, like, you know, the government structure and things like that. Then I went to Youth Justice Board. I completely forgot what I did in that. I'm so sorry, whoever watches this. Like, I forgot what this program. It was, the people were great. I don't remember what I learned. But the next thing that I end up going into was core exploring leadership, and I think the leadership helped me to think in ways, even though it was like interpersonally, it helped me think about, okay, why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and what like are the skills that I need? And I know that may seem like, okay, what does that have to do with like thinking intellectually? But I think, you know, thinking about skills, you end up thinking about like, okay, not everybody has the same set of skills, or not everybody is able to employ the same kind of skills. The reason why this was so impactful for me is because I never, bless you, Kristen. The reason why this was so impactful for me is because I never saw myself as a leader. But as I redefined what leadership actually was, like lifting, my favorite metaphor was lifting the table. I may not be in the front lines, but I'm in the background lifting the table. The reason why that in and of itself is so important to me is because I redefined leadership. For me, that's kind of how I'm seeing like academia a little bit. It's like looking at terminologies and redefining it, understanding what does this new definition of something actually mean for people. And so there was in my experience with Coral, as well as CYLC, which is another kind of program that I helped implement in my school, was like thinking about like, if I'm redefining things in my own terms, that means I can redefine or define my experiences. That means I can redefine or understand how certain people are classifying me, right? Kind of similar to what we was talking about with Nike, thinking about like, you know, some of the what Nike was doing does not really, you know, impact or make Mega feel a certain way in the ways that somebody else may feel, like how I felt, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean all of our truth. It doesn't mean that we're wrong. It's still our truth. So because of that experience, I learned that whole process of redefining. I just didn't see it as thinking. I'm thinking about it now. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm seeing it as thinking, or maybe the first step of thinking. Kind of opposite of Maurice. I see academia as something that kind of pushed me a little bit more in the thinking realm, because my college is literally, they call their place a place to think. So the whole point of us being at that college is to think. So I did a lot of thinking, but as I'm doing a lot of thinking, there was a lot of reading. But to get at like really what Mega wanted us to talk about, I'm still struggling, because I feel like I'm a baby, right? Like I feel like I have a lot more that I got to read, a lot more to grapple with, a lot more to digest before I can really get into answering like, who am I studying? What am I studying? What am I doing? Because I have like the overarching kind of points, but I still have a lot more to fill in. And I'm not necessarily upset about that. Like I have my whole lifetime, but I think I'm in the baby steps, because I just figured out that I'm thinking. Now the question is like, what am I going to be thinking about? What am I going to actually be going towards? But that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Kristen.
All right. So, in regards to, I guess, gained my cognitive thinking skills, my background is very interesting because, like, it's very diverse. So this area in general is very diverse. Like, if I go to Silver Spring, like, there's a whole bunch of Nigerians and Ghanaians. But if I go to Bethesda, it's mostly white. And then if you go to Gaithersburg or Rockville, it's mostly Asian. So in that way, like, I have a very I live in a very diverse area, so I always get like a hodgepodge of new thoughts and ideas coming into my brain. So it's funny, like, I think I had mentioned this in the first podcast, like the very first one, but like I went to like predominantly Black preschool and middle school, but then I went to a predominantly white elementary school and high school. So it's interesting because when I was in elementary school, because in preschool, you just learn the basics like arithmetic and how to write cursive. Yes, they taught us how to write cursive when we were 5. That was interesting. But, and it's funny, I was pretty good at it too, but I guess that's just because I'm an artist. So I kind of had a little step up from everybody else. But in elementary school, it was weird because, you know, when was I in elementary school? From 1999 to 2003, around that range. And, you know, the whole idea of Black history was just like, oh, you were like Africans and then you were captured and brought over here and that's the end of it and now you're free. That was like all the basis was of African American history. So when they taught us that, like, I never knew that there was a Reconstruction era or that we actually had like townships and like city centers where we had like really proficient and like educated like Black scholars and politicians and business people. I didn't even know about the Amistad until I was in middle school. And like, so I felt like in elementary school, I was so lost because I didn't even understand the concept of cognitive thinking. I was just like, oh, like if it's given to me, then it must be true because I'm approaching it from the authority is speaking to me, therefore I must listen, and therefore the information that this person is giving me has to be true. So when my mom put me in like literally a super Afrocentric middle school, like I kid you not, we were calling everyone like Baba and like Mama. And of course we poured libations every single morning. Ashe, Ashe. It was great though. Like I was like flabbergasted about how much I didn't know. Like when I was being taught like about all of these things, like it just blew my mind. And I was like, wow, like there's so much that I don't know. And this is coming from a completely different source. So after I graduated middle school, it kind of dawned on me that the information given to you isn't exactly always correct. You need to navigate and find yourself what is true and what is kind of been not erased, but fabricated. So I feel like my experience in school definitely helped me with that a lot because it kind of showed me that there's always two sides to a story and it's your job to figure out what those two sides are. When I got into university, because high school was, again, a majority white school, but it was more progressive. So we did learn more liberal ways of thinking. But in college is where I really, I guess, kind of started trying to indulge more in like different concepts in terms of like, you know, different political ideologies, even like different like how people think, like, because like in America, you're basically taught to be an individual. Individualism is key. And I feel like that might also be why like capitalism has been like, you know, alive and thriving for so long, because it's always like this super selfish mentality of just like, oh, like it's your job to get your success and like it's nobody else's. And when I started reading about like socialism and communism and Marxism, like I was just like, wow, that's so interesting, because like these other countries, mostly East Asian countries, theirs is like completely opposite. They're like, you don't live in a vacuum, like you have to operate based on society. So that was super interesting. And in terms of psychology, like I was reading about how people thought, and I really liked psychology, even though I'm not a psychology major by any means. Like it was just very interesting to see how different people processed information. Like, for example, there are, I don't know the exact term, but it's like there are people who, when they receive information, like instead of actively like seeking out whether or not this is fact, they process the emotion first. And I don't remember the exact term, but it's like the emotion comes before the cognitive thinking, whereas there are people who do the opposite. And I try to be the latter person just because like, yes, like this makes me very angry, but like, why does it make me angry? Like I try to do logic and reasoning before I let my emotions come out. So that would, I guess, be the extent of how I develop my cognitive abilities. Still working on them.
Yes, we all. Man, y'all so radical. Uh, yeah, to answer this question, my educational background first started in the church. So I'm from a family of ministers. My father was a minister, grandfather minister, aunts, uncles, ministers. I have maybe 15 ministers in my family. And so a lot of what I learned came from, reading the Bible, and I think just family moving from the Great Migration. And so then from there, I was Baptist, I guess Southern Baptist. I think that's what now my family is into mega churches, so I don't know exactly how they identify. But maybe capitalist Christian. No, prosperity. They preaching that prosperity. But so from there, I went to a Montessori school. And I didn't think that the Montessori school really affected me until I became a teacher. And then I understood how growing up and learning in a Montessori environment really connected with my thinking, and like using kinesthetics and using puzzles. And I remember one of the things we did is we set up a Supreme Court. So the actual, and this is crazy because like circles and ciphers and math and all this stuff relates to me and how I identify with hip hop. But my school was set up in a circle. So in the middle of the school was the library, and it was a circle. And then the classrooms were around the school. It was 2 levels, I think. And we spent a lot of time like eating and conversating and meeting in this circle. And that's from kindergarten to 3rd grade. So like the cipher 360 degrees was something that was always prominent in my young life. And I remember us setting up a Supreme Court when I was in 3rd grade and going through this whole process because they were trying to teach us government. Oh yeah, for sure. Me too. So that was it. And then so went from Montessori, then went into public school, but I got placed in the gifted and talented program. And so that's a whole nother, it's like a private school in a public school, because most of the kids I went to school with, I went to all through high school. And some of us kind of broke off, but we all kept together. So it was like this group of kids that we spent time studying the same things, learning the same things in public school, but outside of the mainstream classrooms. And so we were part of the public school, but there was obviously some issues with us being treated this way and having this privilege. And then we were able to go to college starting in high school. So I actually took like AP classes from 9th grade all the way up. And then so I was able to go to college and finish early. Then I went to high school, and then I went to a college called Hiram, which is like this progressive school on the square mile. The teachers live around the school. It's like a super liberal progressive school. And I got a degree in political science. And so I think while that is happening, I moved out of my house when I was 17, so right before college. And so that also played a part in my learning, because Mega talked about fighting. And so I moved, Cleveland is separated really by sides. So on the east side is where most of the Black people live. So you'll see rich Black people, poor Black people, all kind of Black people. Most of my teachers were Black. The white kids got bused to our school. And then some Black kids got bused, but not a lot of Black people on the west side. Some but not like Cleveland, like it's like Chocolate City, it's Black, right? And so I think having Black teachers, like I had, my 1st grade teacher was Black, my 2nd grade teacher was Black, 3rd grade teacher was Black, my 4th grade teacher was Black, my 6th grade teacher was Black. My middle school teachers mostly, except for 1 or 2, were Black. My high school teachers, then it started to get kind of mixed. And then, so like that was, my identity was very much a like super important part of my learning and thinking, and learning about Black people being inventors and all these different levels of Blackness and ranges really inspired me. But also, you know, we learned Beowulf and the Metamorphosis, and we read Shakespeare. I took Latin when I was in the 10th grade, Canterbury Tales, Great Gatsby, all those, the canon of things. So I'd say my learning was pretty Afrocentric and Eurocentric. And I think when I went to, and being in a, you know, Christian family, very conservative. And so, like I was saying before, like when I went to college, by that time I was full on Republican, capitalist, learned that whole idea of like having a seat at the table or building your own table, but we need money for progress. And that was who I was like. And I think that part of it also, I have a hustling background. My family has a hustling background. So all that is centered around making money to get further along. But then, you know, I studied I studied Locke and Rousseau and Nietzsche and Sun Tzu and all those people. That was basically the basis. And then I also, you know, studied Zora Neale Hurston and Maya Angelou and Baldwin. Then I studied, I read The Tale of Genji, and, you know, so just a lot, like I think overload almost. Like I was just like, it was like too much. And then I went to get my master's, which I have in adult education, which I think really started to make me understand about qualitative and quantitative research and things like that. And that I think that we spend too much time in books. Like, I mean, I love books. I mean, I have tons of them, but sometimes experience also is important. And you can't be too confined and too in a box to that. And I didn't come to hip hop late, but you know, I started studying, I would say, as a culture and identifying as hip hop when I was getting my master's, and looking around the room and seeing Black people or seeing white people or seeing all these people who have these dreams. And, you know, I wanted to rap. Like I was like, and I wanted my culture to be on the same level. Like when I did the knowledge and I just saw the overlap, and I was like, that culture is just like hip hop to me. Right. And looking and pulling away from that. And so once I graduated, I moved to California, and I was, you know, touring and doing all this rap stuff. I got into the Zulu Nation for about 5 years. We met every Monday or Tuesday and just studied. It was like study sessions, you know, and trying to find more knowledge of self and learn more about the history beyond just the art and mastering your craft. And I think that where like I believe that, yeah, thinking is important. Like I try to get that to Maya, like giving her information, but also saying you have to experience these things, because you know books are important. I love books. I have a library, so it's like, so I'm always feeding people books, but yeah, it has to be a combination. It can't be one-sided. Because I spent a lot of time studying the Bible, studying the Lotus Sutra because I'm Buddhist, studying the Quran, studying the Kabbalah, studying the Torah, like, and then I got to a point where I was like, I also need to be able to express what I'm learning. And who am I? And did I learn enough about myself? Because, you know, I know about property, I know about Machiavelli, I know about capitalism and Marxism, and, you know, I know why we went to war. I know why we, you know, imperialism, but what does that have to do with the way that I deal with my spouse or deal with my child in total? And sometimes, yeah. So that, I think that's it's an interesting journey. I don't know how I would identify myself right now, other than like being like, I'm definitely a learner, and I'm trying to learn, but also culturally, I feel like I have a duty to kind of rectify some of this in regards to hip hop. So yeah, that's what. But yeah, so what was the second part? We did it, and we don't have that much time. We might have to do this part. We have to do this in parts.
I was gonna say maybe that last question is better on another one of these episodes, maybe next time or another time in general, because honestly, I thought that the part 2 was going to take longer than part 1. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
setting the basics.
but yeah.
Yeah, I think we should continue to the next time. Because what's the question for next time?
How do you assess the quality of your information?
Yeah, this is a big topic.
That was it really was.
It's huge. It's super huge.
So yeah, so let's jump off next. This will be part 1, and then we can jump it off.
I mean, they're almost separate ideas, anyways. So
yeah. What? So I know Maurice has something in the chat. He said, I mean, I think we should maybe do that because we got about 15 minutes. Maurice, you got it? You dropped something today.
He said he got a jet.
No, somebody said they got a jet.
I gotta leave. I gotta leave in like 15. But
yeah, I gotta head out in like 10.
Okay.
I gotta head out in like 10. Yeah.
Where do we want to end? I mean, that was a lot to take in, but anything surprising? I guess let's talk about anything surprising. Anything.
I don't know about y'all, but I was surprised to see the list of all these hip hop acts on the Grammys. And then when I look further into it, it looks as though that they've been cleaning up that urban distinction. And so they've created a melodic rap category, which pushed a lot of the popular rap out of the same standing as like more lyrical, conventional hip hop. And so this hip hop list of Nas and Freddie Gibbs and Royce the 5'9" and D Smoke, the reason that they're there is because like the Drakes and the other cats will be in a whole nother category now. So interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
There's a melodic rap category?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination between the melodic R&B with rapping elements type of thing to it. So The Weeknd would probably be in the same category as like a Drake Hotline Bling or some shit, which traditionally would have been in like the rap, the best rap sung category or something.
Yeah, they started that rap song thing. I think that was in like.
But a few of the categories, and I'm just trying to remember it the best that I can. They removed them, like the urban Latin music category and the urban melodic singing rap category. So they're taking that urban out to further I don't know, clean up and make it more palatable to people. So yeah. But yeah, I was fucking surprised to see Royce the 5'9" with the Grammy nomination. Like,
All right,
I mean,
so
dope. But
Ryan Montgomery.
here you go. Melodic. So this is the melodic rap, the people I put in the chat. The Baby, Drake and Lil Durk, Anderson .Paak, Roddy Ricch, and Travis Scott. So they're up for the melodic rap award.
Yeah. What is the name of the category that Royce, Freddie, and Nas are in? Is that best rap?
I think it's best rap album.
Okay, there we go.
So there is that. I don't know. I think that's pretty dope.
I should also just say that I don't give a damn about the Grammys, but
I know it's kind of like it's. I'm gonna put it. So one year, I didn't make the nomination, but I got nominated to be nominated. So they sent me all this stuff. And I think they were just trying to give me, because I have some friends who are on the book, like they vote, which I found out later. Like in the Bay Area, lots of people are affiliated with the Grammys. They, local people, local artists, and all this other stuff. So somehow my album made it onto the first. So it's like a first ballot. And then, yes, exactly. So yeah, so I didn't care until like I was on it.
That's what they say.
I was like, this is interesting, because I got my album, I had basically got it worked to radio, college radio. So it hit like number 5 on college radio that year. And it, and then I was able to tour and stuff like this. So, I was doing the industry stuff. And because when you do the industry stuff, the industry pays attention. And as soon as you hit radio, then it becomes something official, even though like looking back, which the radio was dope, and it was worth the money, if I can put it that way. And so definitely, but I was like, yo, like I can be almost nominated, because there's lots of people every year almost nominated, right? And so, yeah, I don't know, I'm torn with it. I feel like it's dope that somebody like Royce the 5'9", if you don't know Royce the 5'9", he's like this underground rapper, and you know, D Smoke, who was on Netflix, which I think is a power play by Netflix, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, I like if I like the artist, I pay attention. But I still feel a way because I don't remember who it was. It was this old school act. I think they beat Outkast or they beat Jay-Z or somebody like that. And I was like, forget the Grammys. Or like when Will Smith and them won, because when Will Smith wasn't cool, he was just like this really pop rapper, and he was like, why Will Smith win? You know.
Wasn't he the first rap artist to win a Grammy?
Yeah. But
Shout out to
he was
Will
in
Smith.
his, I don't even know who was in his thing. I have to look it up. But he got a lot of pushback from that. But then you look now and it's like, you know, history changes things, you know, like, well, maybe he deserved it. But I don't know. I was interested, Maurice, you said this lady, she, you know, became the president of MSNBC, or did he left already?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that.
I watch it all the time.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I brought that up because one of my friends, shout out to Chuck Carlton. A lot of people they talk about representation in the boardroom. So yeah, like that was something I wanted to talk about next episode.
All right, cool.
But I gotta head out, y'all.
All right, so we'll catch you. Thank you. So yeah, I don't know. Like when I look it up, best rap album, I think there's another album that they won, but Naughty by Nature actually. So which is funny because Bernie, that's the picture I sent of you for the you sent us that Korean video, and I sent you that black dude with the braids. So Naughty by Nature won in 1996. Won what was the first best rap album. So there's another. Maybe he won rap single or something like that. And yeah, Naughty by Nature. Shout out to Tretch. And the braids. But yeah, I mean, I don't think what else is going on. I feel like yeah, the rap thing was that, and then K-pop, which we can talk about another time. And then I do want y'all to think about the blacklist. Okay, I think that exists. I know it's gonna just make some things, but maybe for you know for Kwanzaa, we can have a Kwanzaa episode. You could think about. I got some feelings about y'all. Y'all mess with Kwanzaa. Y'all mess with Kwanzaa.
I don't. I've never celebrated Kwanzaa.
I still have my dashiki too from Black Panther movie. I bought a fake dashiki.
That's
I was
time to
really
use it.
bad. I was like, man, I gotta. You know, my mom, she dressed up and all this stuff. In Cleveland, they went crazy, right? They was just they would ever look even remotely African. They was like, we wearing that. So she had gold and this. I was like, man, I'm gonna wear a dashiki. And my wife was like, you don't wear no dashikis. What you doing? You know, it was, but I felt it. You know what I'm saying? So
that's why I won't just put one on, because it is almost like a fashion statement now. Maybe if I go back to the motherland, I'll cop one there, but I'm not about to order one from Amazon and you know what I mean? I can't do it, dog.
You know, I'm trying to be racist, but I definitely got one from an Asian country made in you know where. Okay.
Oh, Paul.
And so, but I was like, I gotta do it. You know, I don't know. But then like Kwanzaa though, I started Kwanzaa. I wasn't on Kwanzaa. Plus that dude is problematic who started Kwanzaa anyway. But because I worked at a school and they was always on my winter holidays and they was just Christmasing me to death. Nothing wrong with Christmas, but we don't celebrate Christmas, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, you know what? This year, and my kids, they wasn't feeling it because, you know, most of my kids were Japanese. And I was like, well, you know, it's, you know, we get presents, you know, but we don't want to sing a Christmas song. She was like, what else do they do in America? And I was like, Kwanzaa. And then I found this song that was dope. Oh, Kwanzaa. Oh, Kwanzaa. And it was funny because every video I found, it was white kids, maybe a few. It wasn't like I know black dude. It was. So
it was a white school teacher that taught us about Kwanzaa. She had us in there talking about Jumbo, and I was like, "Yo, something's weird about this."
But my friend,
third grade, they taught us about Kwanzaa.
my friend who's Kenyan, she was like, it's cool, you should try to bring that in. Plus, it has Kiswahili and all this stuff. And so we did it because I was just like, man, red, black, and green. We doing this. So we made these. Boy, I'll just show y'all some pictures. They made the mats, and they up and we did this at Christmas concerts. Everybody doing Christmas, all this other stuff. My one friend from Jamaica, she did kind of a Jamaican version and some other stuff. And I had them kids standing up there with red, black, and green Kwanzaa mats with the everything on all the pictures and stuff, singing old Kwanzaa. And then we changed a Japanese song called Yuki. We changed it to an English song. So we sang those two songs. I was like, y'all gonna do something black and y'all do something Japanese. We ain't doing no Christmas songs. And it was like my last year doing that.
Yo, do you teach or have Santa Claus in your household for Maya?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't do that either.
I mean, like when I was growing up, because I'm coming from a divorced family, so I knew very early, like I'm going over to my dad's house or I'm going over to my grandparents' house, and they want you to know, like, I bought this for you. I love you. This is from Grandpa. So like even when I would go home or in the morning, I'd be with my mom, and she do all that stuff. And like very early on, I figured it out. I stayed up late one night and I saw her I was like, I got you, kind of thing. Like I was always like seeking, what I'm saying? I was like, I know this ain't right. Ain't no man just coming up in my mom ain't having, what I'm saying? It didn't make sense. And then finally, like I figured it out. I called her. I believe it was her or my aunt. I called her, and then after that, it was just like, yeah, whatever. Yes, we buy you this stuff. And then I was happy either way. I wasn't really into that. And then, like I said, going to my grandparents' house and knowing that they just buy me stuff because I don't see them that often. I don't see my father often. So when Maya was born, we was like, no, nah. And my wife is booted. She's from a monk family. They're not doing that. It's New Year's over here. Maya gets an allowance. She been getting an allowance since she was like 5 years old, and she can buy whatever she wants. And I was like, you know what? You don't celebrate Christmas, but you get money every month. And you got a savings, and we'll buy you stuff for New Year's and your birthday. And she crushes little kids' dreams at school when she tells them that she don't believe in Santa Claus and he's not real. And if he come to your house, you better make sure he don't have corona. That's her new thing now. She is horrible. I love her. She'd be like, Daddy, if Santa Claus come, he gonna give him corona. I was like, Maya, don't get in trouble. I'm sure when I go to the parent-teacher conference tomorrow, there's gonna be some of that. But my nephew and niece, because they grew up in a temple, it was hard for them. My other niece is not so much, but my older niece, she used to like be upset and cry and like, why we can't celebrate Christmas and this and that. And I'm like, yo, man. They was like, can you talk to her, please? Because she's not listening to us. And I was like, and I don't know. We don't do that. I don't know what they do. What y'all do over there? Y'all over there with Santa Claus? Is he? Oh, and we used to have a black Santa Claus. In the yard, they had the black Santa Claus. You ain't never seen that, Bernie?
We had it.
I'm gonna send you a picture. We had the black Santa.
We had a Mexican Santa Claus too.
Hell yeah.
At the mall, it'd be like white, black, Mexican rotating.
Tell her you won't. So
Diversity.
Kristen, y'all celebrate Christmas?
I mean, yeah, we do.
You sound very excited.
It's not the same. Like we don't, I mean, because like as a kid, you get excited to see like the fat white man come down the chimney and like bring you cookies. But like now that fantasy is gone, like there's nothing to look forward to.
Yeah. It's family time, I guess.
So
I refuse to lie.
But the thing is, my my dad is like, so he's like borderline crazy. Like he literally, so like my parents are divorced now, but like when I went over to his house for Christmas, so I usually spend like Christmas Day with my mom, and then in the evening I'll go to my dad's house. Like, and then I was just like, I don't know if I want to celebrate anymore because I didn't like come to his house early enough. He lit like one of my presents on fire.
For real?
No, I'm being so serious. He was like, yeah, ho, ho, ho to you. And so I was like, maybe it's not worth, maybe it's not worth celebrating. Yeah, so, I mean, like, the thing is, like, it's supposed to be such a family-oriented holiday. Like, I know it's supposed to be like for the birth of Christ, but first of all, Christ wasn't even born on Christmas. We already know that. So, but it's like when you don't really have a stable family structure, it just is a little depressing.
That's how I felt as a kid. Maggie,
Yep.
Maggie got his hand up.
I was gonna say, man, like if you like, I was raised by a Catholic mom, and so I mean, we celebrated. We would go to mass. We would go to the Catholic church at midnight on Christmas Eve and do all that. And so there was a spiritual component to the celebration of Christmas that was focused on Jesus Christ, but they make no distinction whether or not Santa Claus was a real figure or Jesus Christ was a real figure. So around the time when I was like, you know, one of the things that kind of broke me from the entire idea of Christianity and even Jesus Christ being a historical figure was the idea is like, man, if Santa Claus is fake and the Easter Bunny is fake and the Tooth Fairy is fake, then what is Jesus Christ? And I think that lie kind of was planted in my head, and it you know, it caused a ripple effect through my entire thought process. And for me, I'm not gonna lie to my daughter. Like, one of my things is I have no intentions of lying to my daughter. Sure, there's little white lies or manipulating my language so I don't have to give an answer true or false on some things. But she asked me, you know, is Santa Claus coming to the house? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And they were like, well, they're coming to my friend's house. And I was like, did your friend see him? And I was like, I doubt it. You know, I've never seen Santa Claus before. I was like, we see him at the mall. And she's like, is he going to buy me presents? I was like, no, I got you. You know what I mean? I'm going to buy you presents. I'll get you hella presents.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the thing. Like, I think it's fun. But before I go, well, Bernie, what y'all got full on Christmas?
I mean, we celebrate Christmas in terms of like putting up the tree, but we put the tree up like before Thanksgiving, so it's not really for Christmas. We want some light in the house. When I was younger, I already knew that Santa wasn't real, or if he was real, he was racist, because I live in an apartment. And so he was not coming down any chimney, because I don't got a chimney. So I was like, he ain't come over here. And most of the people around me that were Black were living in apartments. So I was like, yeah, he don't like Black people, so whatever. And then my mom was also like, Santa Claus who? I'm the one giving you the presents. So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because it has to be somebody.
You ain't got no chimney, right? Like, you ain't got no chimney. Like, how you?
We got no chimney, right? So it's like, and the whole thing is, huh?
I said, he
Only for the rich white neighborhoods, you know.
Listen, if he was coming up the window, I would be scared, because
First of all, like, how does that even bring you happiness to see some stranger like coming into your house in the wee hours of the morning through a chimney or through a window?
To give you presents. The way that it was told to me, I was like, I gotta be skeptical of strangers giving me things. So I was like, I'm good. I don't want no white man coming into my apartment with my mom's, because, you know, I don't pay bills. It was her apartment, my mom's apartment.
It's such a Black mom thing.
It's such a Black mom thing. So I was like, yeah, I'm good. And then my mom was like, yeah, I'm the one doing it. It's my money. I was like, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I was more appreciative of that. I was actually more appreciative of the, like, you know, Meg was saying, the religious aspect. Like, if you believe this, and I questioned my mother one time, I was like, you supposed to say this is the birth of Jesus, you believe this. So why are you doing this Yule tides? And you start doing research, this tree and all that ain't got nothing to do with nothing, right? You should just, if you want to decorate the house, and now I tell Maya this, I say, one day you might grow up and you might be into that, but do it because you want to just have fun with it. You know, you're making a family thing, you know, like, don't do it to fit into these, you know, tropes or these things, because there's a reason why people want you to be safe with people coming down your chimney, you know, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, for sure. Megan, you gotta go.
I know you gotta go.
Yeah,
right.
Y'all ready? I gotta get to work and stuff like this and eat some breakfast, because I'm having my allergic outbreak. But I love and appreciate y'all. Peace to dawn.
All right, that ends the podcast. This was a good one. I had fun. I'm gonna cut that other part out though. We're gonna
oh, the beginning.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was funny. I also wanted to say, you could cut this part out once Megan leaves, but I also wanted to say what was more important for us in my household wasn't Christmas and the presents, but was soup jumu that we had on New Year's Day, because I'm Haitian. So for me,